heading into this match. Fnatic against H2K.
No way. Right over.
Are you serious?
4 members down now for H2K. Fnatic, the last team standing against them here in Europe, is going to fall.
From that game, when we catch like weakness points, even they improve, we don't care about that.
I think that if their play is home for, they can be beaten. It definitely shows some flaws in their game.
If we play without overconfidence, then for sure we are gonna win.
This just makes me wonder who is going to stop Fnatic and when.
I want to believe that we're the team that is gonna beat them.
Good luck, have fun. I'll see you guys on the other side. Okay, guys, good luck. We got this.
I don't know what is our team's weakness point.
Welcome to the European League Championship Series. The excitement is high here at our studio in Berlin, Germany, as the summer playoffs draw closer and closer. As you can see, the studio is absolutely packed. There was a massive queue outside just a couple of minutes ago, and people are super hyped. There are some unicorns spotted in the wild, a rare sight as they set up and enter the studio for the first game of the day. Rocket meeting some of their fans, shaking some hands, a little bit of relaxation before getting into the action. And Trevor showing some fans around and getting them well set up over at the desk. And there, the Copenhagen Wolves looking for their very first victory with their new lineup, setting up their gear, showing us what they can do today. I'm Eefje Sjokkesepoortere here to take a look at today's games with the help of James the Stress O'Leary, Martin the Fish Scholinga, and Mitch Crepo Voorspoels. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. Well, full schedule today. We're going to dive right in the action and take a look at the standings. 3 weeks left to play here in the summer split in Europe. Fnatic still above all, 12-0, and then H2K and Origin fighting for that second place. A lot in flux in the middle of the table. What are you keeping an eye on?
My eyes are on the top of the table. Fnatic, they've locked themselves in the playoff spot, and you know, they're at 12-0 right now. We spoke about on PTL their potential road to Worlds, but everybody's talking about it. 18-0 the possibility, but it's a tough week this week for Fnatic.
For me, the most interesting story is the teams all the way in 5th place. You have Rocket, Gambit, and Unicorns of Love, all with 5 wins each. So that's the same for them. What's different is the teams that they will be facing in the next 3 weeks or 6 games. And as we can see on the screen, what we've done right now is we've calculated how many wins and losses those respective teams that they're facing have in total. So if you look at Rocket, they have the toughest schedule up ahead because the teams they're facing are 42-30. Gambit, 50-50, and Unicorns on paper have the easiest schedule.
Yeah, and Rocket is the only team still facing H2K, Origin and Fnatic, so all 3 top teams. They're also facing Giants, the only one we haven't really talked about here. Just above the other teams, 6 wins so far, 4th place. Have been there for quite a few weeks now, and as long as Pepinera can perform, and I would say Whirlip as well, I think Giants will get a playoff spot, but they've been a little bit too inconsistent, to say it for sure.
I will see, but Pepinaldo,
of course.
He's been using that Ezreal with Runelave on 5.12, and we saw a lot of poke in on 5.12. Rather, 8 Varus picks, 8 Jace picks in that mid lane, and 20 of the last 40 picks in the mid lane have been poke. That together with the double poke comps, what have we learned so far?
I think we've learned how not to draft a composition against poke, at least how it can become super hard for you to win the game. Going to the NA LCS, we saw CLG versus Team Impulse. CLG ran a composition with very low engage, and that simply means either you have to win the early game extremely hard, and then
which they did,
very true, and then like you got to be able to push that advantage. You got to be able to secure that Baron to close out the game, and they couldn't do that. Too much, you know, potential bush checking coming in from these poke champions, and of course the late game of this Israel. If you make one mistake against them, they go to late game, and there's just so little you can do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the Fisio here, because what we saw in another game in the North American LCS was Gravity against TSM, and they knew what they were up against. And generally, when we talk about poke comps, they're very telegraphed. Teams show that they're playing and building a poke comp, and Gravity, they recognize that, and they played full-on hard engage. They drafted the Maokai, they had the Shen support coming in, the movement speed from Sivir, so they had all the necessary counters, which is mobility and hard engage, to shut down that poke comp, and they completely just outplayed and outmaneuvered Team Solo Mid.
And Maokai is showing why he's super
so
strong.
Good. I mean, I heard that in a segment last week. Oh wait. No.
Yeah, but that was before poke. I think this might actually be hopefully some resurgence of Maokai, because he had atrocious stats last week and we highlighted it in the old meta game with triple carry. But if you're playing against Poke, obviously speed him up with Righteous Glory, send him.
Yeah.
Just need the one connection, one connect with a Poke champion and just immediately blow it up. But if you don't manage to do that, well, then you have the good old European Maokai.
And he still needs farm. I mean, that's the big deal here in Europe. We're like, oh, Maokai, yeah, he doesn't need any farm. He's just going to be a tank. No, he needs to get farmed up, and then he can always dive in onto these Poke champions.
All right, so I hear you talking about Maokai, Shen. Who are the top priority picks, and how do you get them? How do you counter them? Rather?
Well, what we saw last week in the European LCS was priorities actually placed in a slightly different place from before. A lot of AD carry focus in the picks and bans. Sivir and Kalista banned so much, and that allowed Corki through as one of the main picks that we saw in picks and bans last week. In fact, Corki was picked in 7 games, and that was because of the Kalista Sivir bans. The other kind of interesting one, Shen was played in 5 games, did only win 1, so picks and bans has been hit and miss in the European LCS.
I wonder if Europe's finally going to unleash the Shen support, because we saw it over in North America, but all the Shens that were picked in Europe so far have been in the top lane with mixed success. Not the biggest fan of it, because I feel the engage potential that he has with Taunt Flash is better suited maybe on support. But yeah, I really hope if some of the supports have watched those games and maybe bring it out today, because they could surprise their opponents.
Yeah,
and I really also, sorry just to interrupt.
No problem.
I really want to see Nautilus top lane in Europe. I'm not sure why nobody played last week. I think it's such a strong pick. Other regions have already been playing it. It's a bit like a Maokai in many ways. Massive tank, get a Righteous Glory, use them to engage in these Poke compositions here. And the games also should speed up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see if that Nautilus top gets picked. We have 5 games here today. We'll see which trends on 5.12 continue. We'll start the day off with a bout between the Copenhagen Wolves and the Unicorns of Love. Then later on, the Origin will face Giants, and H2K will be facing Fnatic. That is our 4th game of the day. And well, H2K will see if they can break that winning streak of Fnatic. A lot of key matchups on the horizon. And we want to hear your draft strategy. Tweet at LL Esports and let us know which champion pro combo is your must ban this week and why.
I think for me, the most obvious one, and it has to be on Origin's minds going up against Giants, is Pepinero with the Ezreal. He was the only European player to do it last week, to bring the Runeglaive Ezreal in. I feel like you have to ban it today.
I feel like also if you play against Roccat, Nuke Dog on Varus has been extremely strong. I mean, they won the last 3 games he played it. It was banned once and they lost the game. And just his performance overall on this champion is very important. And I think Varus... He's my favorite Poke champion. You know, I'll take him every game almost.
Okay.
I would just ban Kalista against any team. It doesn't even have to be any team in particular. Perhaps not the likes of Gambit and Giants, because they haven't shown that much propensity of playing that pick, but she's so strong right now, and she changes the entire way people like match 2v2. They have to lane swap, and she has so much strength in the early to mid game that I feel, regardless of who's playing her, should probably ban Kalista if you're purple side.
Well, we'll see. I'd love to know what you guys think at home. Remember to use that hashtag LCS, and we'll talk over your answers later today. For now, though, we're going to go check in with Pulse, who's got some questions for the man behind the Unicorns of Love.
Thank you very much, Sharks. I'm here joined with Sheepy from the Unicorns of Love just to get his thoughts before his game. Now, Sheepy, first off, I want to start talking about the meta, because we're seeing a lot of poke and a lot of variety in champions you can pick.
Yeah, I think right now the meta shifts towards heavy team fighting, initiation, and between the second one, which we used to play a lot with Varus and Kog'Maw, which is the poke. I'm actually pretty happy that it comes down to those 3 styles. Split push we see a lot as well right now. Yeah, heading into today's game, those are like the team composition I think people should look out for.
Well, you mentioned the Varus and the Kog'Maw, but I want to talk about the man behind Varus and Kog'Maw, Power of Evil, and how he's been playing against the other mid laners, and specifically against Soren in this one. Because in terms of the champion pool, it seems like the meta would really suit Power of Evil, with Jace now coming in, Azir even, but we haven't seen either of those picks from him.
Yeah, I think he's an awesome player. He can play a lot of champions, and also the ones you named. So basically, I think it just comes to preference in his thoughts. I think he has a lot of picks. He has also not debuted yet, and yeah, I trust him a lot about the picks. So that we don't see so much is basically because he decides a lot what he thinks is the strongest. But we, of course, acknowledge that picks like Azir are incredibly strong right now in the meta and can literally do everything. So yeah, maybe we see those champions as well from us more in the future.
Well, we've spoken a lot about meta, Sheepy, but the Unicorns usually stray away from the meta from when we've known you. But recently, in the Summer Split, we haven't seen a lot of innovation from you guys. Where's the Gouda? Where's it gone? Where's the magic?
It's down in the basement, slowly, you know, going to a fine age. And yeah, so I think that basically it's just a matter of time for us. We are still exploring the meta. First, what we want to do is you need to understand the meta and play the meta, and then you want to extend it. And right now, we are still at the first step. And you've seen from us before, we just sometimes happen to skip the first step, jump right into second step. So yeah, maybe today we can pull out some of this really nice juicy goose.
Okay, well, making those preparations, Chippy, thank you very much. Go ahead and rejoin your team before we get to picks and bans. Now, we're going to hear from Kickers and his thoughts before we hit the Rift.
Right now, for CV, I don't think they need to have mindset that they go into every game that they need to win. I think they mostly should focus on themselves because they are not in position that it's expected of them to win. So I think there's less pressure on the players. They have more potential to do good and don't be stressed out about the game. So just go into the game and try your best and see how it works out.
Hello, everybody. I'm Pyrotechnics. He's Crepo. We're about to head into the first game of week number 7. So let's get right into it. First game of the day, it is the Copenhagen Wolves and the Unicorns of Love. First, look at the lineups. The Wolves, it is going to be in the top lane now. Lenny, Shook in the jungle. Mid laner is Soren, AD carry Freeze, support Je suis Cass, and their coach Dentist. And of course, they will be facing off on the red side of the Rift, Unicorns of Love. That, of course, means it is going to be Vizichachi in the top, Kikis in the jungle, Power of Evil the mid, Vardag's the AD carry, Hillsang support, and Coach Sheepy, who we just heard from.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Kikis was saying right there. The Wolves right now, they're at the stage in this split where other teams were at the start of maybe spring split or at the start of summer split, and they're so far behind in terms of progression that they just have to look to improve. Whereas the Unicorns, they need to get consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really been their issue along since they've been in the LCS, but it's been more pronounced this time. For the Wolves, though, only 2 wins. Yeah, they get a chance to sort of let the weight fall from their shoulders and just work on improving themselves. And they're going to play SK as well, so it's not like they have the heaviest schedule of all time. The Unicorns, still, though, right in the middle of it all. They want to see if they can make playoffs. They need to be able to win every game it counts.
It's definitely going to be interesting tomorrow when they play SK Gaming because they're only 1 game apart. Mm-hmm. This could mean that SK would tie the Wolves at the bottom of the standings and start fighting about auto relegation. But person that I want to keep my eye on, especially this game, is Soren, because I feel like last split for the Wolves, he was doing a lot better than he is now, and we can see that in his stats as well. They kind of just isn't that much of a carry as he used to be, and this means that although the weight's going to be put on Freeze pretty much to carry these games, and you see that as well in the drafts with a lot of bans towards him. That Draven, that Kalista constantly fired his way.
Exactly. I mean, it's almost half the bans so far at the Wolves have been directed at Freeze, particularly the Kalista, the Draven. Soren, this was a guy who was commanding Cassiopeia bans last split. He was stepping up. He had these massive numbers, but now that it's been a little bit more poke-centric, he seems to have not adapted quite as well.
Yeah, we saw earlier in the split, the meta was shifting away from the mid lane, so a lot of mid laners came out. Fox even said in the interview with us, it's hard to carry, I can't find my groove right now. But with
as you just said,
poke coming back, everything is in the hands of the mid laners right now. If you really control those champions well and you hit your item spike, you hit your power spikes, and you take that advantage, then you can control the pace of a game.
Absolutely. And, a guy that has been doing everything he can to really keep that on the other side is going to be Power of Evil. I mean, this is a guy that has been relied so heavily on in the early part of the split. And you compare him, he's not really had the greatest summer compared to his spring either. His KDA's definitely dropped off. Some of his picks, the magic has been a little bit gone, as we've been saying.
Yeah, but at least for Power of Evil, his summer KDA is worse than his spring, but it's still close to what Soren was in spring, for example. So he still has a leg up. I just want to see consistency from PoE. He could be, or he used to be, such a phenomenal mid laner, playing high pressure with that Syndra and the likes, and just forcing bans, forcing people to play around him. But lately, we've seen him take a step back, super neutral/passive approach to the game. That Orianna with a tier on top of that was just, for me, that was not Power of Evil. I don't know why he was doing that, because he yields so much pressure, and you don't see that in the game, you don't see that in the gold, but it always allows your opposing mid laner to leave the lane. And now I want to see how this matchup, especially in this game, plays out in the mid lane. Who's going to yield the pressure to who, and is the opposing mid laner going to use that to his advantage?
Yeah, that's really got to be the key. Will Soren be able to step up, or will be Power of Evil coming back? For now, we're going to have to find out as we load up into champion selection. And keep an eye on where those mid picks go as well as we get into this one.
And something you should keep your eyes on for general strategy overall is whether the Unicorns of Love are going to force the Copenhagen Wolves into a lane swap. Because the first match the Wolves played with this new roster, with the addition of Lenny and Cass, they were lost in the lane swap. They had no idea of what was going on, where they had to be, and they arrived late. And then consequently, they were late in every single step.
Yeah, we were hearing from them how different the LCS is, and they're really just not able to keep up for it. Maybe this time they'll have had a little bit more experience in the bank. Taking a look at the bans, we've got the Rise, the Sivir banned away, and of course the Draven by the Unicorns against Freeze.
Yeah, whereas at the start of the split, you had to keep your eyes on like Alistar, and maybe some sports like Thresh or Morgana. Right now, you mainly want to watch like Janna, you want to watch the Varus and the Jace. This is poke meta game. If you haven't watched LCS either in EU or in A, that's something you want to be expecting. And since both are up right now, there's still priority for the Copenhagen Wolves. Maybe pick something else, open just with an S tier jungler, you know, like a Gragas if they really want to. But we've seen that get punished around the globe so far as well.
Yeah, the jungle has been completely untouched with all these AD carries, except for the Nidalee that just comes in at the last moment. Does this now prompt? There's the Gragas. I was going to say that or maybe the Corki, but it's going to leave it open for Unicorns if they want it. Also, quite a lot available for Power of Evil if he does go a little bit more carry-centric route. We might see that later on in the pick, though. He doesn't have to take it now.
Yeah, the good thing for teams that are trying to combat poke and don't want to play it themselves is that poke compositions manifest themselves early in Champ Select. You usually build towards the the final poke pick, and then you kind of reveal your strategy at the end, but it's kind of obvious that you're going for it. That means you can counter it with the likes of Hard Engage and something we saw, and Sustain that we saw over in North America. Gravity did that phenomenally. Obviously, you still have to play out, and you can obviously still lose, but let's see what approach the Unicorns are going to take. Usually when the meta sets itself in a controlled state, they tend to shift away from it. It doesn't look like they're doing that today.
And they'll be going for something a little bit more standard, that's for sure. The Corki comes out from Vardags, and Hylissang will get his hands on Alistar. The Morgana ban was actually something that's happened a lot to Unicorns over the split. That's the 10th one. People have sent away the most banned champion versus Unicorns.
Yeah, definitely. If you just go back in time a little bit, maybe one split, that was when Hylissang was doing so phenomenally well with his Morgana. However, that was back when 2v2 laning was more predominant and there was more trading going on. And Hylissang and Vardags, they managed to kill almost every bot lane duo in the LCS back then. We don't see that from them usually as much recently. Very passive approach, and that's why Hylissang is roaming a lot more, which is why I like the Alistar, because I really feel him and Kikis can be the foundations of the mid game that Unicorns of Love can build on. And right now they have a very generic pick with the Alistar Corki. The good thing about it is that the Corki can sit in lane and farm when it's level 6, and you don't need the support to babysit that champion anymore. Could prove useful.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they're able to stay safe, stay nice and easy, adapt to this new style. That's what they've been liking. For the Wolves, they picked themselves up the Nautilus and the Lulu, and we talked about the possibility of a top Nautilus with the Lulu locked in. A lot of flexing going on for these Wolves. We'll see where they end up taking it as the Unicorns eyeball. Right now, this Kog'Maw would not be a surprise. Power had some pretty power plays on it early on in the split, but there's still some time on the clock as it ticks down.
Honestly, I feel locking in AP Kog'Maw here is a step backwards instead of forwards. With both Jace and Varus open as AD poke champions in the mid lane, and you always have that magic damage from the Corki lock down. And I feel they scale quicker, or they have more impact in the game than the AP Kog'Maw, which is why we've seen a lot of teams just simply resort to these champions over the Kog'Maw. Not sure if this means that Power of Evil just doesn't play these champions at all, or whether he, in his mind, feels that Kog'Maw is stronger.
I mean, you had the Varus up, you had the Jace up. There were a lot of options. Now they're going to be very committed to the mixed damage. You know, Power hasn't played this AP Kog'Maw for several weeks. I was saying early in the split, but now it goes right back to it.
Yeah, and if you look at the Wolves, they have a lot of flexing going on. So the Nautilus, well, it's not played yet in European LCS in the top lane. It could technically still go there. Lulu can be played mid, top, and support. So they're about to reveal their composition, and the Unicorns, they want to round that out then finally with their top lane pick. They leave it for Chachi, top lane carry that could technically bully his opponent. Chachi used to be in Spring Split one of the few top lane carries, but right now, you know, Oduam is stepping up a lot. We have Huni getting better as well, so all these carries in top lane, I mean, he's kind of fell down the rankings a bit.
Yeah, just a skosh now. So Victor's locked in. That should be Soren's pickup, and this means we still aren't 100% sure if the Lulu or the Nautilus is going to be going support. Mix it up, see what the options are for that. But for the Wolves, then, they have quite the beefy front line regardless to protect this Graves, protect this Victor. It'll be a tough task for the Unicorns to blow through that and mow them down.
All right, what are the Wolves doing? Usually when we see these teams with new players, they end up playing a mix of comfort picks over actual composition. So Lulu top might be a comfort pick for Lenny here. Has a little chase potential, but not really hard engaged. The hard engage is on Nautilus. It's technically on Gragas too. So now the Unicorns have to defend the Kog'Maw. This is a very linear composition. If you look at what the Unicorns want to do, they have one big threat. That is Power Vivo on that AP Kog'Maw, but he needs to scale. He needs time. But once he gets to that late game point, he's going to be able to poke everybody on the Wolves with relative ease. And then you have the defensive pinball system with the Alistar knockback. You have the Lee Sin kick, and then worst case, Shen can taunt in, provide an extra shield for Kog'Maw. But this is going to be the PoE show with the mid-game Band-Aid. That's going to be the Corki Vardax. I want to see if he can hit that Triforce Power Spike. Not like you usually would expect in this lineup. Usually once you hit Triforce Corki, you want to group up and, you know, start sieging. Perhaps Power Reveal is ready for poke siege then already, but they might probably just use the Power Spike from the Triforce to buy some time, get PoE rolling. But all your eyes should be on this mid lane matchup, and especially whether Shook's going to shut that down. I think if Shook can connect some body slams in the mid lane, repetitive ganks and Power Reveal, then the Wolves can snowball.
He's going to have to focus on that, keep his attention. Kikis will have to do the same thing that early game Lee Sin, see if he focuses on that mid lane or not. So with all that locked up, it'll be very exciting to see if the Wolves can maybe bring it back around, or will, of course, the Unicorns be the one to add to their kill tally? And we'll have to find out. We're about to load up onto the Rift, but why don't you guys at home tell us what you think? Hashtag CW win or hashtag UOL win. Packed crowd in the house. Noise is getting hot here. Let's go, guys. Let's on to the Rift. It's going to be week number 7, starting off right now. Unicorns of Love and the Copenhagen Wolves.
I'm liking it, Pyra. Week 7, full house here in Berlin. Interesting matchup. Both teams have to prove something. The Wolves have to prove that they're making progression. We cut them some slack initially when they had that roster change. Right now, they should have improved. They should have practiced a full week, you know, get some games under their belts, learn what it's like to play on stage. Whereas the Unicorns, consistently shaky. We're going to shake it off or plummet down below.
Well, they definitely have to beat the Copenhagen Wolves if they want a serious shot at these playoffs. All eyes on them as we have a dance party in the middle. Soren showing off his fancy footwork, and Power Evil, the backside.
Wiggling his tail.
I can't get the word.
Passive early game. And this is actually something interesting because we didn't used to see this so much. These wards in the mid lane, they look very generic, but I think it's more of an adaptation that came around this split more so. It was actually initially a reaction to put that ward in the mid lane, then free up your mid laner as a resource to move left or right for these aggressive invades. But even though Unicorns aren't doing anything, they still put those wards. It feels like a bit of a waste. If you're already scouting in the mid lane, I guess maybe they're giving the illusion that they could roam because they're staying out of vision range. But at least they have the ward to see what's up.
It's all about the mind games, Crepo. Took a look just a moment ago. These teams last met. It was all the way back in week number 2, and it was a handy stomp for the Unicorns. They're going to be hoping to do that again.
Yeah, take a look at the early game. The way it's developed recently, it's the League of Double Jungle. You usually see everybody almost starting a camp, whether it's helping out. Perhaps not so often the mid laners. You have Vardax and Hylissang setting up for that Gromp, and then Freeze and Cass. Poised to come and stop it. This is weird.
There is a ward on this. They'll be able to spot it when it happens. Cass reveals.
Oh, they can just finish that.
Yeah, they should be able to do this one. No, backing off. Let's see. Cass
finish it. Oh,
they got spooked.
Oh.
All right. So far, so good for the Wolves bot lane.
No cojones on the side of Unicorns of Love. If the support comes in and he's melee range, just finish it. Get level 2. Give full XP to the Alistar. Get level 2, knock that guy back up, and you can punish that so hard. But bold move by the Wolves, and it pays off. And now Freeze, he got that initial experience in lane. Vardax got chunked. A big advantage right now for the Wolves in the bot lane.
Yeah, it's a great way to start. When you are on maybe carry like Graves too, you want to push your advantage very quickly, see if you can bully your lane opponent out. Let's take a look at Vardax, however, in a couple of games he's had on this Corki in the summer split. Not too bad in the numbers.
Yeah, he does well. Corki just generally does all right, but Graves is a good matchup into it when it purely comes down to laning, because you can always dash out aggressively out of that Phosphorus Bomb, and then you don't have the threat from a double range support. And Nautilus is stronger when it comes to raw damage than Alistar. This is why in this matchup very often you see Alistar start heal, just tank the creeps and force the lane to push back. And Unicorns got greedy with the camp, didn't finish it. Wolves capitalized, but that's enough about the bot lane. We watched the junglers, I think both got a leash from their respective top laners. Shook's super healthy right now, level 3, so he could set up for a gank. But where's he gonna go? Mid lane is pushed in, top lane is pushed in, so double push, triple push for the Wolves. Standard scenario is you counter jungle.
Yeah, let's see if he's able to do that as he heads his way into the same area where Kikis is hanging out, pings it down. No wards here to spot him just yet, and might be buying himself some time.
So and this may seem minor, but because Kikis gets spotted here, allows over in the top lane Lenny to play aggressive again. Before, when the camera was on the top lane, we saw him move out of that couple CS, and he was afraid because Chachi was faking it. He was walking up, say, hey dude, you're in my taunt range right now, you have to back off because my jungler could be here and then you get punished. Right now, immediately once Kiki showed in the bottom, you see Lenny move up and he's not afraid to play at the edge of the tower range. So information is a big resource in League of Legends, and just showing your jungler at the wrong time, you know, could snowball other lanes without really noticing it.
Yeah, he's going in, but you know, level
There's
4,
no backup.
4, they're just going to be able to poke each other out. It really is where the junglers can be and how well hidden they can keep themselves.
Yeah, and this is the natural progression, but Hylissang.
Yeah, he goes in on Freeze with Kikis and Vardag's there. Freeze exhaust is on, a couple of flashes, burn phosphorus bomb, not enough damage. Keep eating the biscuit, can't fast enough. That is going to be first blood over to Kikis as Cass just barely makes his escape. Should come late to the party.
I was about to comment on how that move from Kikis in the bot lane was too telegraphed. He was at the Grump earlier, his camps were down at the in that area, so the only logical move for him was to base or lane gank, and you could easily dodge that, but good Q flash from Hylissang. Knocks Freeze back sideways. He tried to angle himself to get him back into the lane, but if Hylissang took one more step, that would have given Freeze the time to flash, and then the headbutt would have actually knocked him into safety. So good headbutt timing there from Hyli. Good follow-up from Kikis, and fundamental mistake here from Freeze, who's playing a very snowbally matchup. Freeze needs to snowball that lane because in the mid-game, Corki Rockets are so much better, so much more useful.
The only consolation for the Copenhagen Wolves is that they got 3 summoners out of that, but all the same, your AD carry's dead. It evens out the advantage that Freeze had got himself early on by forcing Vardag's back. This will definitely help out the bottom lane. Let's take a look at the others, though. That mid lane, we wanted to talk about it. There is a slight CS differential, but that tier on Kog'Maw is definitely going to be something Power can be very happy about for a while.
Yeah, he wants to stack that tier, but he yields the pressure. Top lane was yielding the pressure. Bot lane was yielding the pressure. So triple lane push for the Copenhagen Wolves. That was good. That you can translate that into objectives, vision control, but then you're not allowed to make the misstep, because the only way you die when you're like pushing so far up is like these, you know, these cheeky little lane ganks with Alistar flashing. He has one engage tool, which is the pulverized flash, because just normal combo is not enough damage at this point in the game to really punish somebody. But they made it stick, and that was fundamental for the Unicorns to buy enough time in this early game.
Even without that flash available for the next couple of minutes, too, now Unicorns are going to be able to push out the wave themselves. You know, with Freeze, his build's been set back a little bit, having to get that secondary door, and so Vardags and Hyli aren't too worried about this right now as they command the minions into the tower. Move themselves up. Let's see if they go for a roam here. They're going to spot the ward out, should be able to take it down. Deny the vision from the Wolves.
Yeah, they just want to put some wards here. They want to find Shook. So while Freeze is waiting for that BF sword after his double Dorns, Shook is looking for an opportunity, and he usually was the shining light in the early game for the Wolves. He was involved in quite some first bloods and some kills and some assassinations, but right now, because of the nature of the lanes, because they were pushing so hard, he had a hard time finding an opening. He spotted the enemy jungler, but his team didn't use that information, so that was wasted time in a sense. So now he just wants to get level 6, find a body slam flash somewhere.
There's always a timer when you play an earlier pressure champion. The same thing can be true for Kikis, but he's very busy in the enemy jungle. Right now you've got the Gragas in the same, though. See what he can get done. Just going to be counter-jungling each other.
Yeah, he's looking for Kikis. He's on the strong side of the map. He just warded it. So he saw that the Wolves just spawned. Indicates that Kikis was here, you know, a couple minutes ago, which means he's likely now on the left side of the map. This gives the safety for the bot lane from the Wolves to push up and play aggressive. I just want to have your eye, or take your gaze towards those 3 pink wards right now that the Wolves have set up. This is what you should do. When you play triple push, you back that up with a defensive line of vision with pink wards, and then you aggressively add a line of green wards in front of it. And then you have complete control of the map, and you use the fact that you have that early pressure to your advantage, and then you want to gain information. Has a jungler showed at these parts of the map? Good, we found him. Has he not showed at all in these parts of the map? Well, that means that he's on the other side. You don't need to see somebody to know where he is, because if he doesn't show in the Wolves for quite a while, you know that he's likely on the other side of the map. And Unicorn's doing a good job here. I don't think Power Evil should be able to get that blue buff just for free, but he does.
Yeah, we've seen this before. We've seen it again. Freeze this time. He doesn't get knocked back into the team or even sideways. He's able to make his escape. Shook is coming in now as well.
Yeah, that's the difference with Alistar with Flash and Alistar without Flash. Sparta gets aggressed on here.
They're going
Should be all right.
Hyli was in the front. He has his back with Shook there as well. Unicorns will know that they have to back off.
Remember, we have Shen
the tower. We might. Yeah, I don't think the dive is coming. Not with the Shen ult or the teleport. Both of them available. Copenhagen Wolves know this. They'll back off.
And that's the difference between Alistar with Flash up. He can Q Flash first, knock you back into the lane. buy enough distance for your AD carry to whittle you down, but just comboing efficient or aggressively waste the cooldowns of the Alistar. You really want to space out the headbutt and that pulverize to make use of an Alistar. That's why usually these lanes go 50-50 even CS with sustain, because offensive comboing costs too much mana for the value it brings you in lane. You just don't win anymore. There's no all-in lanes anymore.
Yeah, and as hard as the Wolves are trying to push in all of these lanes, they're not winning, at least in the CS department, of every single one of them. You take a look up top, we just saw Lenny and Vizicachi. There's an 11 CS differential lead for the Shen, and he's the one who's under his own tower.
Yeah, Chachi got pushed in, but CS, well, he said, I don't really care about your poke. I have sustain. Look at the build path as well. Picks up the early magic resist to deal with that Lulu, and Lenny needs to snowball that lane. Of course, he's going to be utility on the Lulu, so he just wants to help other carries on his team. Graves relatively low mobility. The only person that's really using this push pressure to his advantage so far has been Soren. And this was the matchup we were obviously talking about in the pregame.
Yeah. Well, the longer the game does go, the Victor will get very, very powerful. He's definitely going to be happier if he doesn't get pushed in on. The junglers haven't really made too much attempts to pressure that mid lane. I think for obvious reasons. It's both a long-range thing they're trying to play back, as immobile as you might say these two champions are. So with all of that, they're just going to get the chance to scale up, and that's pretty much at the expense of everyone else on each team.
Yeah, definitely passive mid lane, and as you say it right there, low mobility on both sides. Soren, very stagnant, unless he can connect that Q for some movement speed boost. And now we see this, yeah, how Chachi is slowly getting ahead in this matchup. He doesn't have to care about the poke, and he can sustain with those Vorpal Blades. And then back to the mid lane. At the other side, you have Power of Evil. Low mobility as well, but his range far exceeds that of Victor, especially once he hits that level 11. We always talk about it. Level 11, Luden's Echo, what you're looking for.
He's getting there.
Power's well on his way. Game's relatively even. 500 gold lead. Things to watch out for right now is the Triforce Spike on Corki, and eventually the Luden Spike on Power of Evil Kog'Maw.
Yes, indeed, and we'll have to be certain that the Wolves are keeping an eye on that as well. So look at this, though. Hilly and Kikis moving up to the top. They're close to sitting on this ward, however. And there is, of course, no Luli to worry about.
I like it. I like it what the Wolves are doing. They're playing on their strong side of the map, where Chachi is winning the matchup. They can snowball that pressure into control, into vision control, and then into information. Whereas Corki in the bot lane, he can always farm into any matchup, I feel, and get 70% of the CS just due to the rockets, which is why he's such a good pick if you get through the laning phase. And back in spring, he wasn't that viable because he could get bullied out really easily by Lucian, by Graves, who were super meta back in the day. Right now, if you ban out Sivir and you ban out Kalista, and these other champions don't snowball that well enough, and Corki is a solid pick because once he hits level 6, it frees up your support. Put him anywhere. Put him in the top lane, dive the mid lane. The Unicorns might be setting up for right now.
Yeah, and it did deplete the field just a little bit too. You could see Freeze, he went on this Graves, which we hadn't seen very much for a while. Now, in the bottom lane,
Shen
comes Cass, Vardags, chasing it back. Shook is there. Shen already had come in. The teleport now. And in comes Shook out of the brushes. Freeze is there. Throws the big barrel out. Rolls it as well. And that's going to be Vardags going down. Vizicachi might not have been wanting to teleport in there. All of a sudden, a pack of Wolves out of the brush. They get 2, and they get the tower.
The Wolves put the party and participate when 5 members come down to the bot lane. This is naturally the counter against these wave clear champions that you can't really deal with 2v1. Just bring your entire team there. Dive him. Looked a little shaky at the start, and they were actually baited into playing forward. I think if the Wolves play this more conservative, just wait it out, don't go for the counter kill. Don't get that body slam flash connecting from Shook. That was a big difference right there. Could have turned out differently, but again, Shook with the opening. First 2 kills for the Wolves, he's involved yet again. Let's watch that. So what you're going to see here is Vardax knows he's about to get dove, so he wants to get out. So Kaz has to stop him. Yeah, so he has to commit. Shen ulti gets baited, and now Kaz is acting like he's actually outnumbered. Flashes out for the possible taunt, but this body slam flash from Shook is honestly what makes this work. Chachi gets chunked, and Vardax just gets blown up immediately. And then there's, yeah, some basic tower juggling. Good move by the Wolves. And at the other side, top tower was already down. Middle tower didn't get taken. Eventually down the line, this dragon gets picked up by the Unicorns. But overall, in terms of keeping your tempo even, I think this was a good move by the Wolves.
Yeah, they definitely were able to catch the Unicorns unawares and pretty much with their pants down. Freeze and Cass now pushing on this top side. They have got some backup as well, so they really want to kick this game into high gear. Push the Unicorns back even further.
Yeah, we were talking about it. Chachi chunks out Lenny on that Lulu. Freeze can't push in against the wave clear from Corki, so what do? You took the tower in bot lane, you just swap it up. They take another tower here. Good adaptation from the Wolves. Honestly, the first time I've seen them play an early game well with strategy involved. Usually they had decent lane-on-lane situations, but there's no rotations, no towers taken. Right now they're opening up the map.
this goes back to, you know, them trying to find the new identity with their new teammates, with Lenny and JSVK. They're branching out a little bit. You see Lenny, this is the first time he's been on a utility champion. He's only really played tanks in the first week he was available. But you take a look at the early game activity for the Wolves. Normally, it doesn't turn out well in their favor. They usually try to be active, but sometimes backfires.
Yeah, and that's the mark of a team that wants to achieve something, but can't really find any openings strategy-wise, so they just go for fights. They keep on fighting, and they find themselves getting the short end of the stick. Yeah, they get 30 kills, but they sacrifice 45 deaths. So 50% failure rate right there for those fights. And right now they do something different. They play it slow, they recognize their opportunities, and they go for them. And right now they're 2-1 ahead, they're 1,000 gold ahead against Unicorns of Love, and this is probably something people didn't really expect. However, Power of Evil is still scaling, and that's been the game for the Unicorns this split.
It certainly has. He's working on his tier. He's about halfway stacked up, a little bit more than that, but he's going to take some time as he's got the Luden's Echo, still has some solid wave clear for himself. Illisang looking to go on to Soren, but he's going to get flashed. Soren staying nice and safe.
So you have to do against an Alistar, you have to flash mid-headbutt animation, because a lot of Alistars like spacing it out, as we say before. You headbutt them into the wall, and then knock them up afterwards. So once you get caught, you have to flash defensively anyways, and it's fun to flash over that even. You can switch positions with an Alistar too. But yeah, respect flash from Soren, but a good roam from Illisang. Keep your eyes on Vardax. He's trying to even up that CS. He wants to hit that Triforce. Combine that with the Luden's tier, they could start grouping, because they vastly outrange the Copenhagen Wolves. The only counter opportunity is speeding up Shook for Body Slam Flash, but his Flash is still down.
This is something you mentioned as a possibility in the Champion Select, when they can possibly group up and utilize the combination of the Corki and the Kog'Maw with that massive front line that they have. It's going to be hard for the Wolves to push them back effectively, dive a back line. Soren is going to have to laser his way through it all. Hilly goes forward onto Cass. They're just fighting over the wards right now, trying to get as much control of this river as they possibly can. Going to be a while before Dragon's up, but it's never too early to start.
Yeah, I always want to get that vision control down. That's what Pokemons are good at, you know, ward wars. Want to see them, defend them, just poke them out ever so slowly, one hit at a time. You have the emergency Shen to come in should you need it. Hopefully not, for the Unicorn's sake.
He's got both teleports up, I should say. Take a look at the number of Unicorns here on the mid side. The Shen is backing. You can teleport right after that freeze. Shook, JSVK, all sitting under the tower. It's at about half of its health. And the push will be thwarted for now. Still, fairly even game here, 16 minutes in.
Yeah, look at the top lane. That's what we're waiting for right now for Unicorns. They want to push in, pressure that Lulu, deny her the possibility to come wave clear in mid, and then punish the short range.
Okay, that was an interesting kick, but Kaz is going very low. He has to burn his flash to avoid the last living artillery shell. And this might be an opening for the Unicorns to finish off this mid tower. They've still got the Shen available if they want to use it.
Yeah, look at the zone control and the wave clear on the Copenhagen Wolves' side.
Billy's going in.
Here we go.
Got the Shen coming in on. They target out Soren. He's going to get blown up. Power of Evil gets the kill credit as Vardax valks away. In comes Lenny, and the fight is on. Looking for the tower, juggling the aggro. Chachi tanking it up as much as he possibly can. Tower still stands, but maybe not for much longer without a mid laner there. Kikis goes in, just a feint. The proc of the Ludens go on to Lenny. It's on! They get it! Chachi will get Lenny. They're still finishing off the tower. Finally polish it down, and that is going to be 2 kills and an objective in the mid.
The Unicorns are playing around their power spikes right now. They get the Triforce, hit the Ludens, they start the siege, initiate the split push, junk somebody out, and then they set up the dive. And instead of the the piggyback Shen right now, it was the bull back Shen right there with Illisang carrying over Chachi. And Illisang using his flash aggressively so that Chachi doesn't have to use his. He could save that later. We saw the Pound Flash come out, so it was a good move, good dive, and they're punishing the low mobility on the carries from the Copenhagen Wolves. Definitely had to find the right target there. Soren just got blown up immediately.
Exactly what they needed to do. Let's take a look at that one more time.
So they chunk out Kaz before, and look at Illisang. That's what you have to do on Alistar flank. He's got a flash head, but Soren into the wall, knock up. His flash is still down from earlier. Remember that roam? It seemed insignificant, but it was enough to get his flash down. And if a Victor is defending a tower without flash, he is prime bait, for that hard engage. And Power of Evil and Vardax are untouched, and they can just rain down these missiles over and over. Kikis, cheeky little fake insect. And look at that, max range taunt flash, good execution here from Chachi. Surprisingly, survives.
Unicorn is doing a fantastic job of juggling all the aggression around on the tower, making themselves not available. 20 seconds until the next dragon is going to spawn. Unicorns did a job of picking that first one up after an ill-fated fight bottom lane. The Wolves They've fallen behind once again. This is starting to look a little bit more reminiscent of most of their games this split.
Yeah, and usually the way Wolves fall behind is they lose the lanes a little bit later in the game due to these map-wide plays. And individually, they can't deal with the split pushers and the push and the control anymore. So right now they're trying to combat that by grouping.
They may be able to take this tower down, but there are a number of unicorns in the area. Chachi here looking for Hilly. Hilly goes in, gets polymorphed immediately, and all of a sudden the Wolves, smelling danger, are trying to bail out. But Soren, he's going to go down. The Chaos Storm, not enough to take out Power of Evil in the solo. And meanwhile, Vardax is on the bottom, continuing to push this unabated. Lenny, Wildgrows himself, Kikis goes in. He's isolated from the team, the Glitterlands. That's going to be it wearing off now. The rest of the Wolves are caught. Chachi gets cast. Shook, he's going to go down too. Vardax is still pushing this one. The Wolves are losing everything here.
This is 4v5 by the Unicorns because Soren, he got lost in rotation. He got caught in the jungle right there. And once that main damage is gone, Wolves are on the back foot. And look at the bottom lane. This is the early to mid-game power spike AD carry. One of the two threats on the Unicorns of Love. He wasn't even in that fight.
We got one thing wrong. They didn't need to fully group. Grouped everybody but the Corki. Let him split push down the bottom. He takes 2 towers out. Prime position now to take down the Dragon. And the Unicorns just set up a beautiful counter engage up top.
Honestly, I feel this match gets controlled mostly by Chachi, because he got that CS advantage even though he got pushed in. He got the early magic resistance, which forced then in turn Lenny to not be able to deal with him anymore, so this freed him up as a resource. Suddenly Chachi was pushing the top lane. He had the couple ultis coming in, good taunt flash, and he's the driving force. He defended that tower aggressively as well. He started everything out because they were trying to chunk the Chen. He's playing a good frontliner. And this is not the carry top laner that we see usually with a lot of damage, but he finally has some presence. And that's what we were lacking on the Unicorns. Members with good in-game presence.
Well, Chachi has been one of those top laners who's really liked this Shin. It seems like he's finally now, well, he's had some good games on in the past, but he's definitely making the most of it in this game in particular. And the Wolves are going to have to respect that. They have to take into account his taunt. They have to take into account that he's never far from a fight due to the double teleports. And they don't seem to have an answer for it yet.
Definitely not. And that double teleport, that hard engage is making Soren's life so miserable because both of these carries are low mobility, but one of them has a way shorter range. And once you're on the back foot with a Victor, it's one of the reasons why we don't really see this pick so often anymore over in Europe. It's so easy to get caught out, especially when you're rotating between lanes, when you're grouping, when you realize you can't really take that tower down. Want to move to the next one in the jungle without good vision control, but you feel like you kind of have to make that move because you want to keep up the tempo. It's very easy to get caught out. Look at least Sin. Even like a Kog'Maw E slowing you down is enough for the Unicorns to close the gap, and they're very safe at their maximum distance.
This is the Unicorns recognizing the effective threat. We talked about how Soren had not been necessarily up to his former self, but still had the potential to carry in the past. Let's see. They continue shutting down as Kikis is caught. Here comes the Shen. Was it that got caught instead? Power of Evil, a double kill for him. They're caught in the storm of chaos, but it doesn't matter. 2 for none. They look to push on the top side. Unicorns are rolling.
Chachi with the get out of fail free card for his jungler Kikis here. He gets caught, but he can buy himself some time if he can get the Congo line going. Everybody wants to chase Lee Sin, and then you kick one of them and you just play pinball, you knock them all up, and then the Chen comes in, 2-man taunt, and then, yeah, there's no threat for Power of Evil, so he can reign supreme and just get that artillery down, and good combo.
And that's the difference. They keep focusing on Soren. The Wolves can't find Power of Evil because there's too much frontline to deal with. 5-0-3. Power is doing serious work on this Cog. He's close to finishing off that tier. Everything's looking great for the mid laner for Unicorns.
Everything is looking great. However, we have to go back to the early game. It could have looked different here should the Wolves have exploited that early game triple push. I harp on this a lot when I watch League of Legends, because I feel if you get into a position where all your lanes get pushed, a good team will just rip you apart. They will just snowball advantage from one move to the other because they can constantly move into the darkness, as we see Hylissang do right there. Vardax gets out. The darkness is your friend if you have vision yourself. You know, obviously you want to just force people make use of the lack of information. They don't know if you're moving from bot lane to mid lane to top lane. If you're in the dark, you could be hiding in the brush, you could be threatening the face check, and this forces people to group right now for the Wolves, because if they split up, they just don't have enough information to deal with.
So, like their mascot, Copenhagen Wolves are roaming together in a pack. But will it be enough to catch any Unicorns outstrain in the open? So far, it hasn't been super successful. The early game that they had built up, completely negated, turned around as it stands. There is a massive gold differential at 23.5 minutes. I mean, 7,000, the Unicorns had turned it on its head just time and time again.
Yeah, back of Wolves. Has there been a name for a bundle of unicorns? There's been a term for that.
Someone on Twitter mentioned it to me. It is, I'm trying to recall it now, but it was something very magical.
Very magical. Unicorns. With that spring split, Unicorn dust back on them, finally working in their favor. However, if tradition proves right, today they play well and controlled. Tomorrow might be different.
See if Lenny can get any work done. Cast, they found Kikis right now, but will they be able to take him down? Knocked in, Chachi goes
Soren?
flash time. Soren, not quite down yet. Soren gets the kill onto Kikis. He much needed gold going into his pocket there, but the unicorns aren't done yet. Lenny has to burn the flash to avoid Chachi. Shen looking to chase them on.
Here's Vardex on the left.
The unstealthiest ninja on the front line. Vardax pinged out by the Copenhagen Wolves. They will have to settle for just pushing the wave for now.
Unicorns need to play with a little more respect and a little more just wariness of where their AD carry is on the map. Sure, you can 1v4 with Power of Evil, but why don't you just 2v5 instead? Have Vardex join the fray. He still has that Triforce building towards the Blade of the Ruined King. There's a good amount of damage, and they just need a little bit more to take down Soren. But yet again, he had to use his flash. For the next 5 minutes, these fights are going to be rough for him.
They certainly are. All around the board. For Copenhagen Wolves, this is going to be tense for them to try and make this comeback happen. Soren got some gold in his pocket. That'll certainly help him out, working his way towards continuing to upgrade the hex score and also probably working on, I would guess at this point, a death cap, but he's still some items away from it. Maybe he goes for the Zanya since he has the Amp Tome. Unicorns might not give them an opportunity to finish those builds, though.
Yeah, the Wolves, they said, okay, we're playing all in the early game. Because we have this low-range Graves in the AD carry role. We have this very low mobility, medium-range mage in the mid lane, but these are not picks that do well into poke. As we see right here, Kalsi has the face check and he's gone.
Oh.
They slice off a bit of cheese off the Wolf support right here, and then the mobility from the Talisman coming out.
Immediately can move forward. Soren will be able to dodge away from the Sonic Wave, throws down the Gravity Field. All the same, Unicorns continue to march down everywhere they want. The Wolves have no answer still.
Yeah, well, the Wolves had a decent early game in terms of strategy and at least trying to move to different lanes and get some towers. Their drafting phase seems very weak right now because Chase and Varus, to my memory, were still up for grabs, and he chose the Victor. Even though there were magic damage components on the top lane in the Lulu, could easily match poke with poke and use that scaling mid lane to their advantage to maybe start contesting some brushes. Because I feel like Soren on this Victor is simply not working out.
No, and he's tried a lot of different mid laners so far this split. You know, you look at it across the board, his Azir's really been his most successful, but that's not what they wanted to trend towards this time around. The Victor is a bit of a head scratcher, and it hasn't really paid dividends for them. The Unicorns now grouping up, well, at least Vardags and Kikis to take down Dragon number 3. So far uncontested. That mobility will make it even harder for the Wolves to catch them out.
Yeah, mobility is key, both for and against poke comps, and the second key to unlock this monster lock that is the game is the Baron. When you play with poke, you want the Baron to facilitate that because these minions will get so tanky, people will group up closely to try and deal with them. Easy poke, easy game, easy life. If you're playing against poke, obviously those Baron up minions are going to help you push in and just deny their wave clear so much that you can actually hard engage on them. So Baron is the crux of the game, and it becomes very different as well because we saw over in North America when CLG was playing this low range, low engage type of composition into poke, it's very hard for you to secure a Baron buff. We saw them struggle with that, lose out in the mid to late game, and eventually poke reigns supreme. Whereas the Unicorns, they're good at contesting these objectives. They're not good at starting it, because when poke starts a Baron, they're very clumped up and they're very prone to hard engage. So it becomes a bit of a vision war. You want to push your lanes up, that's step 1. And you want to ward in between the lanes, that's step 2. Then you want to push out the lanes again, that's step 3. And then you go to the Baron, step 4. If you skip any of these steps, you risk throwing the game.
We heard Sheepy before the game, sometimes they do tend to skip steps. That could be an opportunity for the Copenhagen Wolves to punish them. For now, they are looking very solid, very sealed up. So far, haven't been plagued too much by the consistency issues. But again, it's not always in an individual game. It is game to game. And look at this, the Shen looking to counter jungle, going to eventually go down to the bottom side, push those side waves out. That is one of those steps that they will need to get themselves in position for this Baron.
Yeah, putting the pressure on the bot lane, locking one of those resources from the Wolves down. That's where you want to have the Shen usually, but they're a little scared. The Unicorns, they don't want to yield this mid pressure, so that's why Chachi is hovering around mid, because Power of Evil might get hard engaged on here.
Or Shook might be the one. Kik is going to immediately flash mid-barrel, and that is going to be the rest of the Unicorns mobilizing to take him down. Shook is popped by Vardags, and now they're able to get even more off this. Let's see. Straight to the Baron.
No more smite on the side of Wolves. Complete darkness. Oh, darkness, my friend. We meet again. for the Copenhagen Wolves. They
Blue trinket.
lose the blue orb to spot them out, but doesn't really reveal too much information, right? Because obviously, Unicorns are doing Baron.
Yeah, they turn their attention now over to Cass, who's going to be getting away. The Baron still being fired down.
Victor?
There's the Chaos Storm. They got to go in for this one. Cass looks for Vardex. He's burning low. Cass now, he is absolutely massive, courtesy of the Lulu. Hylissang's going to get taken down by Soren. And now the Wolves might have been able to finish this fight off. The Kog'Maw has some serious damage, but Chachi is going to be the one who takes down Soren. A 1-for-1. Kick us around the side. Shook is back up, however. Let's see if we can get back into the fight. It might be a little bit too late. In comes the Stand United. Down goes the Nautilus. Down goes the Lulu. Unicorns come up again with a victory.
Kikis was stuck in an emergency. Gets the help from his top laner right there. Shook was so close to joining that fight. Almost made it there. And this was what we were talking about. This is the risk when Poke starts a Baron, because you clump up. You had the Chaos Storm from Sword come in. Gravity Field zoning. And then Freeze with a massive AoE damage. And right now, they're all low. So Shook, he wants to be a hero.
See if he can. We've seen a couple junglers here in Europe able to pull this one off. They're not zoning him away. They're too low, really. Going to try to keep him in the dark, but this is still a tense moment. Here comes Hilly. He's going to be able to keep his attention occupied for just a minute. Knocks him away. Can they finish it up in time? It's going down. Finally, they take it out, and the game is up. For Shook, never had an opportunity to get the steal off. Still, it's a very tense moment. Kikis got to get away. In comes Lenny all by himself, and he's collapsed on by a blessing of Unicorns.
No Carl to help Lenny, and he goes down all by himself. Not quite sure what he wanted to achieve there with that move. But this reeks of desperation for the Copenhagen Wolves. They had a plan in the early game. You can see plan with the early push, but they saw the opening right here. Look at it. Dredgeline comes out as well later from the Nautilus. Good zoning, and then the Chaos Storm. It's 4 or 5 people constantly. That's what you want. Look at the massive AoE damage from Freeze as well. He's just a little bit too far behind. I mean, they didn't use that Wild Growth offensively. There was nobody diving into the Unicorn, so that's really what you want when you play Lulu into Poke. You want somebody to close the gap. Use that Wild Growth knock-up and slow to your advantage so you can close the gap. Power Evil is still allowed to play at max range, and he's... Yeah, look at the damage.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
If you land it.
Wait, there we go.
The Q.
Yeah, Power was able to go on a seek and destroy mission. So Unicorns, Baron in tow, 31 minutes on the clock. Over 10,000 ahead in the bank. Another Dragon spawning. They seem to have just about everything in their favor. Even got the side lanes back under control. The Wolves, where do they go from here? That's the next question, and maybe back to the base.
Now, coming into the game, we said both teams want to prove something. The Wolves want to prove that they made progression, which in a sense, in my opinion, they did. They still have a lot of work left, but they laid the first brick of the road. And the Unicorns, they want to make a statement that they're consistent. So let's see how well they're closing. Because obviously every team in the European LCS statistically is expected to get ahead of the Wolves. How well do you close versus them? 16-4, 3 dragons to 0, 6 towers to 3, so vast advantage from the Unicorns with that Baron, so essential for your Poke.
Despite it, it hasn't been a flawless game so far. You're absolutely right. If they can close this one in a clean way and not give the Wolves an inch to get back into the game, that would definitely make a powerful statement that they can handle, and they have adapted to their own consistency issues. Down to the bottom side now, looking to take out Inhibitor Tower number 1. They'll get it.
And we talked about Power of Evil and how it would be the PoE show.
Definitely is.
7-0-8, that's 15 added up. I did the math. That's 15 out of 16 kills that he's involved in right now. So Unicorns are playing as expected around their mid laner.
Pass nearly goes down. You've just got to respect that living artillery. It's a barrage that they're dishing out on this tower. Running out of minions, however, Kikis tanks up a little bit too much damage, and they back away spooked until the next wave arrives. Dragons up, that's always an option. They look more interested in taking out this inhibitor. No Wolves there to stop them. They back away from it. It goes down. Inhibitor's bare. Time seems to be running out for the Copenhagen Wolves right now. Cass is going in to try and make the hero play. Gets the knock-up, gets the second knock-up with the Wild Growth. Look for Chachi, baits out Cass. They take him down, they're just too big. The Unicorns looking for the end game here without a support Nautilus to back them up. For Wolves stand alone.
Yeah, the Gragas ultimate from Shook just wasn't in the right place to knock anybody into the Wolves' team. That's what you want to do with the Gragas. Knock three of them back, knock 2 of them forward, kill them, then take down the next members, but Unicorns get the free disengage from Shook, and then the fight's over. You have to blow them up immediately. They go for Dragon number 4 as the top lane is hitting. The minion wave is hitting the tower soonish. Just buys them enough time to control the map. They're gonna base. Spend a lot of gold. They're probably sitting in quite some gold right now. Yeah, 1.4 each, roughly. quick before they buy.
They've got everything on the map so far. 8 towers to the 3 of the Wolves, who have only taken out the first ring of them. All the dragons, the 1 Baron in this game. All that remains is to try to close this one out and prove, yes, we do deserve to be in the top 6.
Yeah, and the Unicorns right now, they were on 5 wins coming into this game. They were tied with Rocket, tied with Gambit. And in the opening of the show, you didn't see it, we compared the strength of schedule of the opponents that they were facing. And what we did is we looked at the total wins and losses of the 6 teams that's remaining. For the Unicorns, they had the easiest schedule, mainly because one of the teams they were facing still was the Wolves. So they definitely confirmed that. They took the easiest victory that they possibly have left, and now they lead to a tied 4th place with Giants, 6 wins on the board. So if Giants drop a map later, Unicorns are suddenly tied again.
Yeah, they'll be moving on up and see if they can close this one out in style. The Wolves still remaining defiant to the end. Looks like they nearly picked off Kikis, but he was able to bail out. Some fancy footwork. Chaos Storm doing a little bit of damage to Chachi, but he won't be too worried about that. Inhibitor Tower looking to go down, but all of a sudden Shook makes himself an issue. Goes in, gets even bigger thanks to the wild growth. Not quite down just yet. Hylissang's caught up in the gravity field, and no one dies, but blinking health bars across the board for both teams. Might drag this game out a little longer as Chachi goes in for round 2 on the tower.
Yeah, Shook trying to find an opening, desperately so. Chachi, Talon Flash misses.
Not quite enough. Gonna go ahead and send the depth charge his way. Won't be able to polish him off. Inhibitor number 3 is finally down. The Wolves, now is the time to try and act, to try and get a miracle fight, but they won't be able to find it. The Unicorns slip free from their grasp yet again.
Wasn't pretty. The Inhibitor went down, that's what you came for. You spent some flashes. First we see Kikis go full hero mode over the wall. Realizes, hey guys, I might be able to cut here, so he flashes out. He says, okay, time to shine, time to make my LCS big play. Sadly connects the body slam, Cask misses. And Chachi's turn Taunt Flash inwards, but they eventually get what they came for. They get the Inhibitor, 3 inhibs down right now. Those are down, let's see, 12,000 gold, and it's not looking like they have the comeback mechanic they're looking for.
No, and they just haven't been able to do much since that early game. Go back, I want to harp on it again because these mid laners, it looked so great for Soren to begin with, but the focus they put on him, his lack of range was so effectively punished by the Unicorns, and Power of Evil, his immobility really wasn't. You look at his score, he's extended it. This guy's been a part of almost every kill that they've had this game, and he continues to just consistently pump out the damage. The Wolves have had no answer for him all game, and that's been one of the biggest mistakes, I feel.
Now, I think this game can be looked at, especially going back to the early game. That one play from Hylissang, Q flash of the freeze, shut him down. No BF sword progression into double thorns. I really feel that was the first step for the Unicorns to stay even in this early to mid game, and that's enough when you look at the compositions. That's all they want to do, stay even Stevens. And honestly, that was the only kill as well that Power Evil was not involved in, and arguably the most important kill this match too. Good opening from Kikis. He was spotted out in his jungle when his lanes were all pushed in. So he was locked down. He had one opening, one shot, one opportunity, and he took it. Unicorns might celebrate with some spaghetti later, but still have to close out this game.
Yep. Still have a little bit of time on the board to do that, but the Wolves are running around scared, trying to save themselves, but Soren will be the first to fall. Cass may be the second. He is. Nexus turrets aren't going to live for much longer at this rate. All the way back to the towers, and Freeze is nearly taken down. Hylissang bowls the rest of them back in. Too many minions, too much pressure, and in the end, it's GG to the Unicorns of Love.
All right, Unicorns. You showed a decent early game, a controlled mid game, and a decent, I would argue, even good closing.
Consistent this time. They were able to do the goal that they set out.
And the fans here, full house, seem to really appreciate this victory from the Unicorns, but their biggest task is tomorrow. They have to show up again and make sure that they can show the world that they can go 2-0 instead of these very shaky 1-1 weeks where they can slightly underperform.
Yeah, they have not had a full 2-0 week for several, and a couple of 0-2s, so this is hopefully for them the start of a trend as they shake hands with the defeated Copenhagen Wolves, who did, I think you're right, they really showed that they have made some progression, but you're right, there's also a lot of work to do going forward towards the end of this play.
And that makes me wonder, is there going to be enough time for them to progress? Because while SK Gaming is only 1 win away, SK Gaming has looked vastly superior to them. They just throw at the end of the game, let's face it, that's what SK does so far. They've been playing phenomenal mid to late games, but then later on when they're heading, especially around Barons, they end up losing the game. Copenhagen Wolves, they don't get that far. They play maybe a good early game, sometimes not even that, and then they get shut down. So the team atmosphere wasn't the best, forced to make roster changes, so definitely things that work in their favor, you know, excuses-wise, so it's understandable. But in the end, it doesn't really matter what your reasoning is. If you finish 10th, you're out of the LCS.
Yeah, looking to avoid that one for sure. But for now, Unicorns have added one more tally to the win column for them, and looking forward into playoffs, we'll see. They were able to go all the way to second in the spring in their debut split. It has been a lot shakier, this split this time around, but smiles on their faces for now.
Yeah, and man, we usually forget when we talk about the Unicorns, because they have such a low kill share, because they have such a low gold share, is Vardax, honestly, rated lower on the list of 80 carries. We had a good performance right now, you know?
Yeah.
7.7
Solid.
KDA here. On average, he averaged like 4 KDA. He had a lot bigger kill participation as well, 76% here, because mainly that's what the composition for the Unicorns was about. He wanted to help his team group up with that Corki and that Kog'Maw in the mid game, and that's what I like. They played to their strengths. They waited for him to scale. Obviously, the Corki was picked up early because that's what this metagame is about. Saver Killista out, you pick the Corki, but then you still need to recognize and play around your power spikes and make them work. But I still feel the two key moments in this game were that first spot on Freeze and then Chachi. I think he controlled the early to mid game, the pace very well. He got that advantage over his lane adversary Lenny, started snowballing, and then he could always ult out aggressively. Usually if you put a Shen under pressure and he's to ult out, you're going to lose something. You're going to lose a tower, you're going to lose 2 minion waves, but if the Shen is pushing, he has the advantage. He still has the pressure from the wave on one side, he can ulti to the other side, and suddenly you turn the tides. And I think that was very vital on the side of Unicorns of Love.
Yeah, it definitely worked for them at least 9 times out of 10. There was only 1 or 2 times where you really thought, well, maybe the Unicorns weren't prepared for this. That early 5-man dive by the Wolves springs to mind, but they couldn't keep the pressure up, and that was the issue. They fell behind because they couldn't do what I think you said a lot of better teams can do, is just take that pressure that they have in lanes, translate that to objectives, and just snowball and roll over opponents. It didn't ever happen.
Yeah, honestly, that was the correct move by the Wolves. You know, if you're under pressure and you can't really open up that lock that the Unicorns put on that mid game with, you know, wave clear in the mid lane, that's gone. Wave clear in the bot lane, that's mostly gone by the time that wave hits a tower. You, go on the flanks and dive, and when you dive mid lane or bot lane, good setup, honestly. Yeah. Good dive by the Wolves on bottom, and then they rotate up Freeze to the top lane. Good, get another tower, good snowball. I think if Freeze didn't get caught for that first spot, that move could have been enough to snowball the early game. Instead of being 1,000 gold ahead, you know, they could have been 2,000 or 3,000 gold ahead, and suddenly Soren could have played aggressively, because if you have a gold lead, you open up your zone control. You go forward, and then Soren, he could position in the back a lot better, because now he was forced back. He constantly had to be in the back foot and dodge these tanks, whereas if you're ahead in the game, you can push those tanks around and you have more control. And honestly, it's a very snowbally game right now, League of Legends, because teams are getting better at closing out, and we saw the Wolves, they started a snowball, but never turned into an avalanche.
Yeah, but this is the thing. When you're a team like the Unicorns, and you're not always able to consistently find an answer, being able to say, okay, there's a Graves that's getting ahead, he's getting shut down. Finally, they're able to realize and recognize and stop that snowball before it became an avalanche on him. So for now, that's all for us. We're going to send it over to the analyst desk. They're going to look into that game. UOL's first to open the week.
Yeah, definitely, Pyra. I'm joined here by Power of Evil and UOL coach Sheepy. Congratulations.
Thanks.
This was, merci. This was possibly, actually, certainly the strongest victory you guys have had all split. Tell me what led up to that. Did you get everything you need out of picks and bans? Maybe the coach wants to take that one.
Yeah, I think we played a really clean game in this game. I also commends to Copenhagen Wolves early game. I think they rotated well, but we played more of a defensive role, since we have the Kog'Maw, and Power is just at some point so strong that he can solo carry. So I'm giving that over to you. How was it playing Kog'Maw?
Well, so we just basically play passive in early game and try to make plays on other lanes than mid lane. We just try to let Victor push me in and just try to get as much farm as I can. Try to let me solo experience till 11. And I think the first aggressive move we did in the mid lane was the tower dive on Victor.
Yeah, and we wanted to take another look at that because, as you said, a very clean early game from you guys. So we actually have a replay of the play you made onto the mid lane with Hilisan coming in from the bottom lane. So can you talk us through this play, perhaps, Power?
Well, so we communicated through that Nautilus is recalling. So we instantly go as soon as Nautilus is recalling, and we know that Victor has no flash. So I think Hilisan is instantly flash ulting with the Shen ultimate on the Victor, and I just use my whole combo on him, and we just try to burst him as much as we can. After we get the kill, because we are kind of chaotic, we are trying to disengage as good as we can and deal damage backwards.
Yeah,
and I think we come.
Down, I think, at that point as well.
Exactly, my cooldowns. We're trying to play around my cooldowns, and we came quite clean out of it.
Yeah, a very, very clean dive as well. One of the first real safe, aggressive plays that you guys, I feel, have played in the last couple of games. You can see this one went on for quite a while, but it was you guys coming out on top of that at the end. One thing we wanted to talk about, specifically with you, Power of Evil, you seem to be one of the only people playing Kog'Maw. Why Kog'Maw in this game over an Ezreal or a Jace or a Varus that are so top in the meta right now?
Well, so the biggest reason in this game, in this Champions Section, was that they had a Lulu, and we were scared of freeze getting the Kog'Maw combined with maybe a mid lane Lulu, because that's like the Joggermaw, and we were just really scared of getting the, freeze a really strong AD carry where he can like solo carry, combined with like the other 4 teammates kind of supportish. And if we get the Kog'Maw, I just feel like Kog'Maw is top tier mid laner and he can't really get countered by anything else.
Yeah, and also we saw that they already picked Lulu as well. So for top lane we could easily go for Shen without being afraid of any kind of split push, since we got punished in the Giants game by a really great Giovanna play by Werlip. Yeah, so we just went with the Kog'Maw Shen combo, and at this point Power just feels super safe. And yeah, at some point he was like in the Western shooting at people and they started dancing, and if they don't, you know, you get hit.
Yeah, it was great. Just living our cheerleaders. Beautiful Edgar Allan PoE making poetry out of League of Legends with those ults. It is getting closer to the playoffs though. It seems like you guys are ramping up. We know how good you guys are in best of 5 scenarios. Is that why you think things are going a little smoother? Do you feel that excitement of that playoff spot being within reach?
Well, we are trying our best to reach the playoffs because, as you said already, I think we are one of the stronger teams in best of 5s, and we can show our whole potential. I think we are in the regular split a little bit scared of pulling out new picks because of the best of 1s. Every win counts, and it's very high risk, high reward, obviously, of doing it.
Also, we had this week really talk where we all sat together and just talked a little bit about, you know, getting everything out there and, you know, talking about picks, talking about people. And I think that just helped us all to just overcome this. And today, when we went into the game, there was a lot of talking, like very easy going. And once you get into the game and you really have nothing on your mind besides the game, it's so easy to play. And I think everybody was in a good mood, and then we just had really clear minds. So as far as I could see.
Yeah, guys did. Yeah. Looked very clear, clean-cut victory. Congratulations, guys.
Thanks.
All right, time for us to take a quick break, but when we return, Roccat will take on Elements as they vie for a seat in the summer playoffs. Don't go anywhere. European LCS will continue right after this.
I almost never use Smite on Crab.
What?
What?
That's why I never played jungle though.
Why would you smite the Crab?
For HP.
It looks good.
Got the Shen coming in on the target out Soren. He's going to get blown up. Power of Evil gets the kill credit as Vardax valks away. In comes Lenny, and the fight is on. The rest of the Wolves are caught. Chachi gets cast. Shook, he's going to go down too. Vardax is still pushing this one. The Wolves are losing everything here.
I got him ignited.
I can't go to the back now.
Kite back.
We need to back out. We need to like kite back, guys.
I can taunt.
Okay,
now.
Go. Gets the knockup, gets the second knockup with the wild growth. Look for Chachi, baits out Kas. They take him down, they're just too big.